Hey there and welcome back to another DreamWorks video. And today I want to dive back into the world of Shrek and talk a little bit about one of the most iconic villains in the franchise, the character of Charming, or rather Prince Charming, the son of the fairy godmother, who appears as a secondary antagonist in the classic Shrek 2, where his mother, the fairy godmother, conspires with King Harold to undo Princess Fiona's marriage to the ogre Shrek and get a hitch to her son instead, so that way she can remain the power behind the throne forever. To do this, Charming impersonates Shrek after Shrek had drunk a happily ever after potion and is thwarted and kicked to the curb almost instantly. And then he returns as the main antagonist in the less than classic Shrek the Third, where alongside Rapunzel and a bunch of other villains, he tries to seize the throne of Far, Far Away after the death of King Harold, despite Harold only being the king consort and Lillian being the actual queen, but I guess we'll have to ignore that. Anyway, he's thwarted once more by Shrek, Donkey, Dragon, and King Arthur, who then claims the throne. And then Charming doesn't really appear again. And yeah, there really isn't all that much to his character really. When you meet him, he's the heroic archetype. He's going on a grand quest to rescue Princess Fiona and slay the dragon in the castle. However, this trope, like many in the Shrekverse, is almost immediately inverted and he's revealed to be a spoiled, whiny man-child who lives to serve his dear mummy. They plot to get Fiona to fall in love with him to secure his place as the future king of Far, Far Away, but he's always the bystander, never the main attraction. He's never really fleshed out, and so, when the plot fails, you expect that's it for his character. But like I said a moment ago in the third film, he tries his luck again after the death of King Harold, only to get slapped down a final time, without ever really having added to his arc at all. He stays the whiny, entitled brat we all knew, with no real depth and no real backstory to be mentioned. So what else is there to say? But then I got to thinking, for such an important character to the story, because he is important, he's one of the major antagonists, we're missing a huge piece of his backstory, a key component of this character's life, one half of his DNA. And so today I want to pose the question, who the hell's this dude's dad? Is he just called Charming? Is Prince a true title, a fun nickname? His actual first name? What's going on here? And so yeah, today I figured I'd walk through the likely and unlikely suspects as to who this kid's dad could potentially be. And so yeah, I guess we'll start with the highly unlikely suspects, because you gotta save the best for last, know what I mean? And so with all that being said, it's time to jump into some theories. Okay, so there's really not that many people it can realistically be, is there? After all, there's not that many people that are the right age to have, well, to put it bluntly, to have gotten the fairy godmother pregnant. And that's a lovely visual. Okay, but we do have some contenders. But, you know, fair warning, the early category is my demented ramblings. It ain't these folks, but I want to firmly rule them out just in case. Because, well, I'm honestly just a completionist, and I just want to have it addressed. Merlin, he certainly seems old enough, and in some of the classic stories, he is a bit of a horn dog. But yeah, we'll just press X to doubt for that one. There's no indication that this is true, and honestly, it's for the best. I never want to have to think about the Shrek version of Merlin hiking up his nightgown ever again, thank you very much. But then, who else is there that's kind of old? Harold, I guess? Although that one's borderline deranged. And by borderline, I mean completely deranged. As they're both going along with Charming trying to seduce Fiona, which would be incest. And, you know, even for European fairy tale royalty, I feel like sibling incest might be a step too far. I wish that was the case for all royalty in history, but it's not. But let's move on, because it's gross. On top of that, you can rule this out because there's literally no interaction that would suggest that this is the case, so that idea can well and truly get lost. And so rapidly we run out of crazy ideas, or at least realistic crazy ideas. I mean, maybe a random dude is the father, whether that's a random nobleman or a random peasant, although considering her ambitions, not likely. Not likely to be a random peasant. But wait, there is more, because those were just my least likely, almost impossible picks. But I do think there are a number of far more likely options on offer. And I think the obvious, and the most probable answer, would be that surely this dude is a magic IVF baby, right? She has a business that can pretty much do anything. It can force you to fall in love, turn you into an ogre by night, turn a frog into a man into a frog. It can make you a more conventionally beautiful version of yourself. We see all that and more within the confines of the story of Shrek 2. And on top of that, a completely unrelated person, the Muffin Man, who lives on Drury Lane, is able to make a giant gingerbread man and bring him to life after being cooked in one night. So it seems rather straightforward to create life out of nothing in the world of Shrek. You just gotta have the right ingredients. And so, would it be so out of the blue for the fairy godmother to have summoned this guy up from out of nowhere? Perhaps used her magic to get herself pregnant with the perfect baby? After all, on paper, the dude's perfect. In story, he's supposed to be handsome, even though to me, he looks like his face has been smacked in with a shovel. He's supposed to be bold and brave and strong, a great warrior, an adventurer, charismatic, awesome. After all, this guy goes on a quest to save Fiona with the assumption that he would defeat the dragon. And he probably would have. I mean, maybe his mum had already tipped the scales, but who knows? Plus, he literally looks nothing like the fairy godmother at all. He doesn't even look half fairy to me, so maybe he is a potion baby. And I kind of like it because it adds a certain irony to her arc, because he would have been born as the perfect baby, to grow into the perfect man. A sweet little child who was extremely cute and would have grown up into the imminent Chad. But instead, he has a terrible temperament and personality because his mum spoiled him rotten and made him into the worst possible candidate to be a future king. I mean, and that's saying something, because he'd be even worse than King Ogre Shrek, who just wants to leave to go back to his swamp shack and never come back to the kingdom again. When you manage to make your child a worse king than the ogre who wouldn't care and would rule via correspondence from a swamp in a different realm, you've really made some errors in your parenting style. And so yeah, that one, it's realistically the best option. And whilst in all honesty it does make the most logical sense, I still can't help but think there's a little bit more to it, because I don't know, I just get hung up on the concept of Prince Charming and the fairy godmother being obsessed with getting him on the throne at any cost. So is it possible that this dude's actually a legit prince, or at least a bastard prince? And I'm not just talking any bastard prince, but the bastard prince of either Uther Pendragon, the brother of Queen Lillian, or their unnamed father. And realistically it could be either, but since in Arthurian legend Uther does have a bit of a reputation for being a bit horny, and since he's actually a named character in the franchise, you'd go with him. And what's the crux of my very shaky theory? What sort of foolproof evidence do I have? Well, I'll be honest, it isn't a whole lot, but it's more just the whole vibe of the thing. I mean, look at Charming, right? And then look at his theorized half-brother, Artie. You know, it's a bit of a resemblance, but one that can be brushed off. After all, whilst there is a resemblance, it isn't enough to prove anything. But then take a look at Charming, and then Queen Lillian. Look at it! Look! What the hell is this? The dude looks more like her child than Fiona does. The two confirmed children, Fiona, daughter of Lillian, and Artie, son of Uther, and yet the character that looks the most like the royal family seems to be Charming. He legitimately looks like a long-lost relative. Pfft, not even that long lost, just the family secret. And so is it so far out of the realm of possibility to think that perhaps Uther had a role in the hay with the local fairy? I don't think so. And yeah, it gives her even more motive to see her son succeed. After all, from a certain point of view, she might view this as his birthright. And thus, she's very obsessed with getting him to be king, because she thinks it was stolen away from him. And there's really not much else to say. And I doubt DreamWorks is ever going to come out and make this canon, but to me, you know, call it bad character design or whatever you want, but he looks too much like them for it to be mere coincidence. And so yeah, it's canon to me. And so whilst trying to marry off your kid to his first cousin might be a bit whack, what can I say? It's royalty. Shit happens. And so yeah, with all that being said, that's really the end of the video. And I would like to say that these have just been my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What do you think of Prince Charming? Who is his daddy? Got any ideas? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and let me know.